strengthening state arts agencies throughout the Western region. So kind of an innovative model for a nonprofit arts organization. But what started CAFE was, I think it was the mid-90s, Kodak announced we're no longer going to be doing any slide support for images, which is the way artist work was previously juried. So the kind of arts sector had this huge collective gasp, and many of them started hoarding their slide carousels. And we figured that probably wasn't the most sustainable option, and that maybe we could help develop a system for artists to be able to apply to different calls online. So the first kind of effort that we did was a kind of a sister system that's called zapplication.org that was built in partnership with 7 of the top art fairs and festivals in the country because art fairs have really significant selection calls for entry, and thousands and thousands of artists apply. And so we built the ZAP system that was specifically for art fairs and festivals. And we were kind of in a staff meeting and talking. It was like, well, there's a huge other part of the arts field that is going to need this technology as well, aside from just art fairs. So we started to develop CAFE. And my, I guess, claim to fame, if you will, is that I named this system. So it's a little bit my baby. I worked on it from its inception. And we built it primarily in the beginning as a tool for public art commissions, so percent for our calls for entry, and then expanded it kind of outward from there. So what this is a system that is free for artists to use. They can go in, they can set up a profile, they can load in their portfolio, and then apply very quickly to any call that's listed within the CAFE system. We at the Alaska State Council on the Arts use this for all of our calls. The Anchorage Museum uses it, the City of Anchorage uses it, a variety of different agencies in Alaska use it. So as an Alaskan artist, it's really a benefit for you to be familiar with the system, get your images loaded into the system. But the other piece that's important for us, and one of the reasons why we use this, is that once you're in here, yes, you can apply to all kinds of Alaska calls for entry, but there's national opportunities that are also posted on the site. You can then know about and apply to quickly and easily through the system. So it's an artist development tool as well as a technology system. So we want you to get in here, start using it. You can sign up and get regular newsletter updates that tell you what new calls have been posted, and find out about other opportunities that are available to you throughout the country. So this is the homepage of the site. And when you visit the site, there's not a ton of content on there until you register and start using it as a management tool for your calls for entry. So what you'll see is a kind of sliding, scrolling scale of different art opportunities that are available, and different kind of informational blurbs about what the system is. So I'm going to sit down. If you're having a hard time hearing me, just let me know and I can stand back up. So when you get to the site, you can take, kind of peruse the general information. And here from this kind of home tile, there's view all calls. So before you even register, you can go in here and search and look at all the different types of calls that are on the site. So as you can see, there's a search for call type. There's a really wide variety of different types of calls that are posted. So alumni, exhibitions, awards, fellowships, there are literary calls, there are public art calls, there's photography specific calls. So there's a lot of different types of opportunities that are available and listed on the site. So let's say you found one that you're interested in. Your next step is going to be to set up a profile. So I'm logged in right now, but if I was not logged in, up here you would see a little place that says sign up. I'll show you what the profile is. It's very simple. You put in your contact information just like any website. If you live elsewhere for a different part of the year, you can enter that in. If you work as part of a team, which happens a lot in public art, you can add your additional team members. and then you can, here at the bottom, opt in or out of a variety of different communications that CAFE has set up. So one is 2 days before the deadline. If you've started an application, you haven't submitted, the system will send you a little reminder. Deadline's coming up. You can get, I think it's a monthly newsletter that lists the new calls that are posted on the site. So these are just email notifications that you can opt in or out of. So once you do that, you're ready to get started. So once you're in the system and are starting to use it, your kind of home base or dashboard is going to be this My Cafe Entries portion. And this is where you can track all the different applications that you've submitted through Cafe. So it'll give you the link to the information about the call. It'll tell you what your status is. It'll allow you to take different actions based on this option, based on where your application is in the process. If the call requires a payment for you to submit an application, those payments will be listed here as well. So again, it's free for artists to use Cafe, but sometimes the organization that's hosting the opportunity is charging a fee for artists to apply. I'm sure you're all familiar with those kind of charges for entry. And so Cafe will process those. So this is your kind of dashboard. But where you're going to start being new to Cafe is in the My Portfolio section. So this is where you can upload media, image, sound, or video. So we have increasing use of different types of opportunities for film and other things like that. So you can see here we have 42 images in our image bank, and this is the Alaska State Council on the Arts. This is our kind of profile. Because we actually use Cafe to apply for a public art award application every year of different commissions that have been installed in Alaska through our program in the last year. So it'll show you how much of space you have in your storage limit. And the idea here is you load your portfolio. Maybe the first time you use it, you just load the images that you want to use for the first application you're submitting. But over time, your portfolio is going to grow. You're going to have all those images stored in this bank, accessible for any call that you want to apply to that's posted on Cafe. Does that make sense? So you don't have to re-upload images every time. It's stored here for you. There's a point that I was going to make and now I'm forgetting it. I'll remember. So when you're ready to upload image, you click Upload Media, and it asks what type of media you're uploading. And so you choose image, audio, or video. Then you choose your file, and it opens up your browser so that you can see, you can go to your computer and pick the image that you want. So you upload that. The system, because sometimes these images are projected in a high quality manner, you should have the image be 1920 pixels on the longest side at a minimum. So the system will resize it down to 1920, but you want to have high quality images because that's going to convey the detail in your work and your work as well as possible. It'll size it down to 1920. So you can do larger and it'll size it down, but you never want to submit a small image and size it up because that's when you get pixelation.
So I usually have larger ones and size it down and sometimes have a hard time because then it goes pretty low in memory, but what you're saying is I can upload a higher one and it'll automatically.
It'll size it down, yeah.
So that's probably the best, it sounds like the best option for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead.
It probably tells you the size, the recommended size on the site too. So
right.
So I couldn't see from this.
Yeah, and here in Cafe Help, there's a ton of tutorials. Sizing your images, file size limits, all of those kind of things. Mm-hmm.
Is it a smart thing to watermark your images, or is that something that you prefer not?
I recommend against it because ultimately it's distorting the image that the jurors are going to look at. All of the images that you upload into your art bank are not accessible to the public. So the public can't come and find your artwork in here. The only way it's accessible is when you submit an image to a call. So then the people you've submitted it to can see it. But even then, it's not public. So I don't recommend watermarking. I also, some artists try and kind of, we'll say maybe game the system by saying, well, I'm going to have, I've got my 1920 pixels. I'm actually going to put, 2 rows of 5 images on each, so that I'll have 10 pieces of work within one image, and I'll be showing more of my work. That's actually a detriment because it's smaller. The jurors aren't able to see it. The jurors want to see the work. So at most, I would say a large image with maybe 1 detail inlay, but that's at the very most. But sometimes with public art, that can be helpful to have a little detail inlay. You can also upload a detail image separately as well and just label it as a detail. Okay, so you've uploaded your image. Then it just asks for the basic information about the work, the title, the media, the dimensions, the price or value of the work, the year it was completed. It asks your primary discipline. So this is a set list of different artistic disciplines. It asks whether it's an art in public places image. And if you say yes, so let's say you've had a public art commission and you're applying to another public art call, this will allow you to note where it's placed, the location of it, the public art program that commissioned it, and then for all the images, you can then add a brief description of the work. Laura? I could, yeah. So how many of you apply or are thinking about applying for a public art commission, a percent for art commission? Okay. So there are 2 different types of calls that can be offered. The most common by far is a request for qualifications. And this is basically an entity. So ASCA, it has a new commission going up in a school. And so we are having an RFQ, or a request for qualifications. And what we want you to do is to submit previous examples of your work for this call. So we're just asking what your qualifications of previous work are. A request for proposals is requesting you to come up with a specific idea for that commission and submit that. As a state agency, we highly, highly discourage public art commissions being listed as RFPs, because we believe that artists need to be paid for their creative output. And so when you're asking an artist to compete basically on a proposal, it's a bad professional practice. So whenever possible, we really strongly encourage agencies not to do RFPs. There are a couple situations where it may be helpful to do RFPs. If it's a small commission and you're looking to specifically have a program that is for emerging public artists, and maybe public artists that haven't had their first commission, so they don't have any previous work to show, an RFP can be a good kind of foot in the door for an artist that's wanting to get into the public art field. Because that's often the hardest thing about getting into public art, is getting that first commission. Because without it, you don't have any previous work. And unless you've done large scale outdoor kind of work, it can be hard for jurors to understand how a 2-dimensional fiber piece would translate to a commission within a state courthouse or something like that. Does that make sense, the distinction between the two? So you will see both on here sometimes, but again, artists have boycotted calls that are RFPs because they feel really strongly that it doesn't really respect and value the creativity and the artistic work that goes into creating a proposal. So, okay. So once you have all of this information submitted for your image, you click Add to your portfolio, and then it will appear in your portfolio. So again, not only is the image in your portfolio, but all of the information about that image is associated with that. So you don't have to re-enter the image information every time. It's already there and it's stored for you. Now there may be a situation where you have an image and you have an artwork and you have all your information in there, and you've submitted it to an agency for a call, and it's being juried. When that is the case, the image is basically locked from editing from you. You cannot edit that image because it's currently being reviewed by a jury. So it's the same as you've stuck your slide sleeve into the mailbox. So if you want to use, you can use this image as many times as you want, even if it's committed. However, let's say you're applying for a call that has a price cap, the image can't be more than $4,000, and you have the piece that in here listed at $4,500. So you need to change the price information because you want to submit it for this call. What you can do in that case, there's an option to duplicate the image. So you just click duplicate, and then it just automatically duplicates the image. You can modify the information so that it fits. You want to retitle it as well so you don't get confused which is which. And then use that modified image to submit to the call. Does that make sense? And sometimes artists change the information in their work a lot, sometimes they don't. So some artists are heavy users of this functionality, others aren't as much. Okay, so you have your portfolio all loaded up and you're ready to start applying to calls. So you can click Apply to Calls, and you're taken to the list again that we saw earlier. And let's say we just want to look at Alaska opportunities. So you select Alaska and click Go. And you're brought all of the Alaska calls that are being listed in Cafe right now. It'll give you the brief kind of information. It'll tell you what type of call it is. This is Bunnell Street Art Center in Homer. They have residencies. Open to international artists, Homer, Alaska. There's a $25 fee. If there's an event associated with it, it'll list the event dates. It'll tell you when the deadline is, the number of days you have until the deadline. And then sometimes you can make more than one application to a call, and so it'll tell you how many applications are allowed. And then it'll just have a brief kind of informational blurb to give you more information as you scan through. So I'm actually going to go to one of our calls that's a public art call. So you have these two options, view more info or apply to this call. If you click on view more info, it takes you to the full prospectus for the opportunity. So this will just give you the basic information, what the budget is, information about the facility. In this case, it's a public art call for entry. The architect statement, installation date, the themes that they're looking for, different sites. So oftentimes with public art, it'll be a large campus, and they actually have money for 5 different pieces and different sites within the new facility. Did you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Building.
Okay. And often it'll show you site maps and different things like that. So you can get a sense of what the new construction is if you're applying to a public art call. And I really highly encourage you to read these and read them carefully. I also encourage you, if you read them carefully and you have questions, to call and ask your questions to the administrator. When I worked at Westaff, I would have artists that would call and say, I don't want to read all of this text, can you just tell me what this says? And that doesn't really reflect well on you as a professional. So read through this, but again, don't hesitate to call unless it says no phone calls, because often it can be a relationship building moment. You can learn more. It's a public process, so you're not going to get any secret information. But it can be really advantageous because if you're asking thoughtful questions, it will help you submit a stronger proposal, but also it will help develop the relationship with the administrator. And over time, that can really serve you. That the administrator may hear of another call that's open in a different state that she thinks would fit really well with your work, and so contacts you to say, hey, there's this opportunity. So that relationship building is an important part. Even though this is a technology system, you can use it to kind of further that one-to-one human contact as well. So this has the criteria. Make sure you always read the criteria. I remember when I was working on Cafe, we would have a couple artists would apply to every single call that was listed on Cafe, Doesn't matter if it was only eligible for only open to Alaskan artists. Doesn't matter if it was a two-dimensional fiber piece they were looking for and they were submitting three-dimensional sculptural pieces. They would apply to every single call. And, you know, only apply for the ones that you think will fit. But especially don't apply for the ones that you know won't fit. Because that just, you'll start to get a name if you start seeing that, you know, the administrators see you applying for all of these things. Because the agencies that use Cafe are paying to use it. So they're the ones that are subsidizing the artists using it. And oftentimes they'll have to pay more with more applications. So just be thoughtful. Don't be concerned, you know, apply to all the ones that are eligible for you, but just don't abuse it, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, so you've read over everything, you've called, you've asked them questions. There's a little link here to contact the administrator. You can go back to the list of calls or you can click apply to this call. So what you get here is an agreement that you're signing off on that's between you and the agency that's hosting the call. So for us at ASCA, we have an agreement that basically says you verify that this is your work, you're representing it authentically, those types of things. These don't tend to be very onerous kind of legal agreements. However, you might want to check because, you know, there are some nefarious people out there that trust that artists don't ever read these things, or just people in general who reads the license agreements for, you know, Google. So it's good to read, but often it's just very pro forma. So you click yes, I agree, and you're taken to the application. So this application form is built by the administrators of the agency that's hosting the call. So each of these will be different based on what the different agencies are looking for in terms of information. So all the required questions are in bold. This asks for you to submit a short letter of interest, current resume. And here's a note, there's two different ways that administrators can ask you to submit a resume through Cafe. One is through a text box like here, which has minimal formatting options for you. So if you just cut and paste a resume, your current highly formatted resume into this text box, you're going to lose a lot of formatting. So what I encourage artists to do is to have a version of your resume that's for this type of question, that's formatted with asterisks and with different things, and keeps it really clean without all of the formatting like bold, underlining, things like that. And then also have your regular version, because a lot of agencies use this text box resume because it makes it easier for the jurors to read it, and jurors then don't have to download a Word document. You don't have issues with docx versus, you know, .doc.
Do you provide a framework for which they input their call, or can they just do anything they want? Is it going to look fairly similar to everybody else's existing information is today?
Yeah. So what Cafe offers is question type. It's a form that you can select different question types. So there's a text box type, there's a radio button type, there's a multiple choice type. So you'll see those types, but they can't do their own HTML coding to make you do crazy things. It's all within a pretty prescribed system. Okay.
Question. Some proposals in the past for RFPs. When you go to reply to them, you find yourself all of a sudden in a situation where you have to do the installation of the electrical, the lighting, and go carry it on from there and there. That gets scary. How are you does this application address that? Or does that become part of the side contract? Because you're now going to be entering into a building where that architect, quote unquote, is going to have his say, and so is the codes within different areas.
Right.
You follow what I'm driving at? How do we address that? Or is this just a preliminary?
This is preliminary.
Okay.
So this is the first round, basically. So this is the first round of applications that narrow it down to the finalists
Okay.
that are in most cases then paid to develop a specific proposal for the site. So let's say 500 artists apply. This narrows it down to 5 artists as finalists. And then usually what happens is then the entity takes it all. It's no longer in cafe, and the agency that's sponsoring the commission works directly with each of the finalists to develop. Often there are site visits, so you get to go meet with the architect. You learn more about the architectural plans and what the requirements are for the artist with installation, all of
Because
those.
that affects your price.
Exactly.
I mean, a blind price is one thing, or a simple RFP is one thing, but after that, those costs come out of your,
Yep. And I know artists who have
gone in the hole.
Yeah. So it's something, and it's outside of the cafe system, but it's more of a professional development for new artists of public art, of like what to watch out for. And ideally, you have a public art administrator who knows the sector, is an advocate for artists within this process. And so they're helping the artists through it, which can be a kind of foreign process for artists who haven't worked in public art before. Because you're in like hardcore negotiations for contract and dollars and all of that kind of stuff.
Is
So
that the kind of stuff you can ask at the next one? Is that kind of area that we can put on the next, we can put on there and talk? Is with the reps and stuff, the next session meeting, if we go to it at 6:30?
uh-huh.
Are those the kind of questions that we can ask that he's asking there more with like the contract administrative side versus the cafe side?
I highly doubt the candidates would know
Okay.
that level of detail
Okay,
about
perfect.
public art. So I think what you'd want is to talk more about, ask more about, support for percent for art commissions, or yeah. Or things like paid professional public art staff that are managing these commissions, I think could be really valuable. Yeah. Because one of the things we struggle with is in such a large state, there's a very wide range of knowledge of professional practices within public art. And so a lot of our work is education, but sometimes that doesn't happen, doesn't get through. So that's it. Just diplomatically, that was it. Okay, so here these are again just a bunch of text box questions. Here's a checkbox: you certify you're a resident of Alaska. You agree to terms for photographers. This is kind of that's an interesting one. So you answer all the questions, and then you're brought to your profile, or to your image bank. So basically, it's asking you to choose 10 images. So you just click them all off, and then you click save, and you move to the next phase of the application, which is ordering the images. So you can order them thematically, which I highly recommend, and then submit it.
Ordering
when you're
it
done. So let's say you have
What, I'm sorry,
the sequence of how the images are going to
Oh,
be
okay.
displayed in the slideshow.
thematically.
Yeah.
That was.
So you want to keep thematic pieces together, obviously.
If there's like a video section, would that be in this?
Yes. Yeah. And administrators can determine how many images, how many video, how many audio, and it can be any variety. It could be up to 10 images and up to 2 videos, or that's all set by the administrator.
What is the maximum size for your portfolio that you have in there? Say you've done several things. Will it only take 50 images of yours? Then you have to replenish them or change them out, or what?
It's a storage size. So let me see. 960 megabytes. So we have 43 high quality images in here and are only using 30 out of 960. So video obviously takes up a little bit more. But if you are nearing hitting your limit, then you'll need to switch some up.
What about the 43 out of 100 though? Is that a cap per cap 300 maybe?
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess there is 100. Yeah. So, and this is one of the things that have changed, but not a lot of artists had more than 100. Because really you want to be submitting with your most recent work, and this isn't a place to store your archives. This is a place of work that you're using to actively solicit new work. So that is the basic kind of system. It's relatively simple. It can be a little intimidating the first time. There used to be much more onerous restrictions in terms of how you had to format your images, and there's a lot of reasons why it was that way that I